Today we are going to discuss about inheritance in Java. And inheritance in Java is a mechanism using which a class is allowed to inherit the behavior and state, which is methods and fields of another class. And just like any other pillars of object-oriented programming, the main benefit of inheritance is code reusability. And the way the code reusability works in terms of inheritance is that the code that is written in a base class, which is the class from which any other class can inherit, is common to all the subclasses, and subclasses are the classes which inherit from the base class. And the subclasses can directly use any of the method of a base class. So the class which is at the top level is usually known as the superclass or base class, and the classes which inherit behaviors from the base class are known as child classes. So here in this example we have a class called user, and it has one variable name. Now what we can do is we can create a constructor, and in the constructor we can take string name as a parameter, and then here what we can do is we can do is dot name, which is this name variable. The keyword this means the current instance of this class. So when we say this dot name, we mean this variable here is equal to name, and this name is equal to the incoming name here. So we set the name, and then we can have public void print name method, which is just going to do system dot out dot println, and it's going to print out the name. So this is a very simple implementation of a base class. Now we can derive a class from this base class. So let's say we have this employee.java, and we want to derive the employee class from the user class, and the way we do it is using the extends keyword. So we can use extends, and we can give the class name user. Now once we extend user, the employee class must define the constructor and call the base classes constructor, because you can see here the error says implicit super constructor user is undefined for default constructor. Now we can use this mechanism of Visual Studio Code to fix it, or we can manually just create a constructor and use the super method to call the base classes constructor. So let's use this quick fix, and this automatically creates an employee constructor with the string name and passes it to the base classes super. Now if the base class, let me get rid of this, and if the base class user had a default constructor without any parameter, so if I create user, or if the base class did not had any constructor, then the employee class will not throw any error. Given that it has a default constructor which is parameterless, by default when an instance of employee will be created, it will create an instance of user using the default constructor. But if default constructor is not available, the compiler will not be able to create an instance of user, because user has only one constructor which expects a name parameter to be passed to it. Hence in employee we will need to create a constructor with name and pass to it, or we can create without name and pass a null if we wish to, but that is not a good practice. So let's pass this. And now if we just do this, what happens at this point in time, as I mentioned earlier, because employee extends user, meaning employee derives from the class user, it will get all the methods of user, which is print name. So if you go to helloworld.java, here we can create an instance of employee, and we can give the name of the employee as John. Now here, if we do employee.print name, we can see that the print name now is available to the employee class because employee class derived from the user. Employee extend the class user. That is why we are able to see the print name, which is part of the user class through inheritance. And now if we compile and run this application, we are going to see the name of the employee, which is John. Now this is standard inheritance. For inheritance, we can also have multi-level inheritance. In case of multi-level inheritance, now employee is extending from the user class, meaning employee is a child class of user base class. Now we can have another class called manager, and the manager now can extend the employee class. In this case also, manager is going to throw the same error as employee did because we need to create a constructor passing name. So we'll do the exact same thing. Now here what we have done is we created a multi-level inheritance. We have the user base class, employee extends the user base class, and here manager extends the employee class, and employee is now the base class of manager. So we have 3 levels of inheritance. And here, if we create an instance of manager, in the manager as team, let's fix the name of the manager here. We can say manager dot print name. And now if we compile and run, we are going to see print name for both the employee and manager, and both of them is going to print name. But at this point, if we go to the employee class and add a new method, and we call this method as public void print decorated name, and here we say system.out.println, and here we say name is, so instead of just printing name, we are just adding an extra couple of words, name is, and we are printing name. Now if we go to the hello world.java, if we do employee dot print, we can see the decorated name because it is part of this class. We can also see this decorated name part of the child class. But if we create a class called user, of course, and let me keep the name as null because I'm not going to use anything. But if I do .user dot, we're just going to see print name because user is the base class. Now if we compile and run for the manager class, it is going to print out the decorated name, which is name is Tim. So this is a multi-level inheritance. Now we can also have hierarchical inheritance. In case of hierarchical inheritance, what is going to happen is, now the manager class, instead of deriving from employee, it can directly derive from user. Now what happens, both employee and manager are now deriving from user, which creates a hierarchical inheritance. And now because it is deriving directly from user, the print decorated name is not going to be available to manager anymore. It is just going to have the print name, which is an expected behavior. So this is at a high level what inheritance is and how we can use inheritance in Java. And as I mentioned, the main usage of inheritance is code reusability across multiple classes through base class, child class implementation. Now I am personally not a big fan of inheritance. And this might not be a very popular opinion, but I personally am not a fan. And the reason for that is it creates a tight coupling between classes. And then at some point in time, if you change something at a base class, it impacts the child classes. And how you use child classes becomes also very complicated. For example, if a base class has 3 methods and you want to use only 2 of them and don't even want to show up the third one, there is really no elegant way of doing it. But this kind of problem is solved through a new generation of design patterns or design principles, which is known as solid design principles, which I'm going to talk in the next video. Now, one thing I want to mention is that some programming languages like C++ provides multiple inheritance, but Java and other modern programming languages do not provide multiple inheritance. Though you can use interface to kind of get into a multiple inheritance type of behavior, but it is not inheritance in true sense, because the whole reason of inheritance is code reusability. Given that interfaces do not have code inside of them, hence the whole concept of code reusability does not work out really well. And the reason multiple inheritance is not supported in modern object-oriented programming languages is because it becomes really, really tough when you provide multiple inheritance to figure out which behavior to use in which condition. If both base classes have same method, how do you resolve that, and so on and so forth. So that is all I wanted to cover for today's video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to this channel and you think you are getting value out of this channel, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks so much for watching this video.